Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for the virtual public meeting regarding the Drought, Conservation, and Golden State Water's recent 14.1 filing with the California Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, to implement a staged mandatory conservation and rationing framework to address the statewide water supply challenges as a result of this historic drought. Today's public meeting is for customers served by Golden State and the following water systems: Artesia, Downey, Hawaiian Gardens, La Mirada, Lakewood, Long Beach, Norwalk, and Santa Fe Springs, as well as Bell Gardens, Cudahy, Hollydale, Huntington Park, Paramount, Southgate, Vernon, and Willowbrook, Culver City, Claremont, Los Alamitos, Placentia, San Dimas, San Gabriel, and Simi Valley, as well as Gardena, Lawndale, Carson, Compton, El Segundo, Hawthorne, Inglewood, Redondo Beach, and unincorporated Athens, Del Aro, El Camino Village, Lenox, and Gardena Heights. I'd like to start by letting everybody know that this virtual meeting is being recorded and will be posted to our website in the next few days to ensure that the information regarding our 14.1 filing is available to those that could not attend this live presentation. Please know that as an attendee, your name or face will not be shown on the screen at any point during this virtual meeting. Additionally, you can listen in English or Spanish. You can access the Spanish language function by clicking the translation button on the bottom of your screen. There's also a transcription feature located on the bottom of your feed that will transcribe the audio feed presented in the meeting today. At the end of the meeting, we will provide a phone number for you to call to answer any question that you may have or take your comments regarding this Schedule 14.1 filing. This is a dedicated phone line that will have members of our customer service team standing by to field calls after the meeting. All questions and comments will be noted and shared with the PUC to meet compliance with the public input requirements for this meeting. Considerable amount of information will be provided today, but before we begin, let me introduce myself and the others who will be presenting information during today's meeting. My name is Paul Rowley. I'm the Vice President of Water Operations here at Golden State. Joining me today is Ben Lewis. He's our General Manager for our Foothill District. Dr. Toby Moore, a Water Resources Manager and Chief Hydrogeologist, and Edwin De Leon, a Water Use Efficiency Manager. Here's the agenda for today's meeting. As I mentioned, this meeting will provide information on our Schedule 14.1 filing, which is a staged mandatory conservation and rationing framework to address the statewide water supply challenges as a result of this historic drought. You should have received an email or a direct mailer with information on the filing as well as this meeting. The information for this meeting was also posted in 8 regional newspapers. I will first present information on this historic and most unfortunate statewide drought, and walk through the details of the Schedule 14.1 filing, including each of the 6 stages. Ben Lewis will discuss the local drought conditions. Dr. Toby Moore will provide information on the next steps in Long-Term Outlook. And finally, Edwin De Leon will provide information on various water conservation program and resources. I will wrap up the meeting with a review of frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. California drought update, next slide. The historic drought is not just limited to California. As indicated on this map, the Western United States is experiencing drought conditions with 94% of the Western states in moderate drought conditions, 83% in severe drought conditions, and 60% in extreme drought conditions. When we look at California alone, 95% of the state is experiencing severe drought conditions, with 50 of the 58 counties falling under Governor Newsom's drought emergency declaration. As a result of these conditions, on July 8th, Governor Newsom asked all Californians to voluntarily reduce the water usage by 15% using 2020 as the baseline year. In other words, if you're using 10 billion units or CCF in September of 2020, Governor Newsom is requesting that you reduce the usage to 8.5 billion units, which is also 15%. When you look at the California and how it receives its water, for those of us that live in California, we've experienced drought before. As with previous droughts, the drought is the result of below normal rain and snowfall for the past 2 years. Compounding this situation is that we experienced a warmer than normal spring, which negatively impacted the amount of snow runoff. As a result, the state's critical water storage reservoirs did not fill as expected. Due to California's reliance on local rainfall and snowfall in the northern, central, and southern areas of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, California has an extensive network of monitoring stations across the state to measure precipitation in real time. This network has been in place for decades, and as a result, a tremendous amount of information is available to the general public. For example, this graphic presents the snow water content across the northern and central southern regions of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The snow water content, often called snow water equivalent, converts inches of snow into inches of water. Due to obvious physical characteristics between snow and liquid water, 12 inches of snow is not the same as 12 inches of water. I realize that this is a very busy graphic, but it tells a very important water story in terms of California water resources. As you can see, the timeline of this graphic covers the wettest part of the year in California, which is typically from October to July. The light blue shaded area represents the average amount of precipitation that has been typically received over the many decades in California. Remember, this graph is depicting the snow water content of the annual snowfall received in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The green trend line represents the wettest year on record, which was the fall-winter of 1982 and 1983. The driest year on record, which was very recent, was the 2014-15 fall-winter year, which is represented by the red line. As we continue to look at the graphic, you'll notice that there were wet or above normal years in 2016 and 17, and again in 2018 and 19. But for the past few years, you can see that we have had below average rainfall and snowfall. The current drought is a culmination of below average dry years beginning in 2014 and exacerbated by the below average dry years in 2017-18, 2019 and 20, and now 2021, as depicted by the blue line. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, due to a warmer than normal spring, the state's key storage reservoirs did not fill. This particular graphic provides storage information for the state's key water storage facilities. Next slide. To highlight a few reservoirs, you can see that the Northern California reservoirs are extremely low, with the state's three largest reservoirs, the Trinity, Shasta, and Oroville reservoirs, being less than 50% of the historical average for this time of year. As a result of all these conditions, many northern and coastal communities have already implemented mandatory water reduction and conservation measures. One critical important point to note is that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, is predicting a 70% chance of a La Nina condition this winter, which means that most of California will experience below normal precipitation, if that prediction comes true. Even if we have a normal or above average winter rainfall, snowfall, due to the low levels of the state's key water reservoirs, the expectation that the Department of Water Resources may hold back much of the winter runoff to refill the reservoirs after several years of extended drought. Next slide, please. I will now present the details of Schedule 14.1 and the state's mandatory conservation and rationing framework. This discussion will include the details of each of the 6 stages. For Golden State Water Company to impose staged mandatory conservation and rationing requirements on our customers, we must first seek CPUC approval. As part of this process, we are required to have this public meeting to address your questions and solicit your input on this framework. We submitted our framework to the CPUC on August 21st, and if approved by the CPUC, the program will go into effect September 20th, 2021. As mentioned earlier, at the end of this meeting, we will provide you with a dedicated phone number for you to call and ask questions or provide your input. This information will be collected and provided to the CPUC as part of the approval process. Rule 14.1 consists of 6 conservation stages, with the first stage being voluntary and stages 2 through 6 imposing mandatory conservation measures. Reduction amount in stages 2 through 6 will be indexed or baselined off 2020 water usage, which aligns with Governor Newsom's 15% voluntary conservation program. The mandatory water use reduction increases with each stage, and the penalty for exceeding the allocation increases as well. At this point, we have quite a bit of information to be provided, but I want to make one thing clear. As we go into each stage of the presentation, the customers in this service area, which again is Artesia, Downey, Hawaiian Gardens, La Mirada, Lakewood, Long Beach, Norwalk, Santa Fe Springs, Belleville Gardens, Cudahy, Hollydale, Huntington Park, Paramount, Southgate, Vernon, and Willowbrook, Culver City, Claremont, Los Alamitos, Placentia, San Dimas, San Gabriel, Ardena, Lawndale, Compton, El Segundo, Hawthorne, Inglewood, Redondo Beach, and unincorporated Athens, Del Air, El Camino Village, Lenox, and Garden Heights, we will go into a stage 1 conservation level. So that's the voluntary conservation. No penalties are imposed at this stage. Just a few more high-level points to make before I dive into the details of each stage. The allocation will be based on a month-by-month basis, not on annual usage. We will look at the usage for the specific month in 2020 and then determine the allocation and apply the reduction amount specific to the stage for the current month. Those new customers that may not have 2020 usage, we will use the average usage figure for a similar customer classification or type. The current and future allocation will be printed on your bill. Schedule 14.1 applies to all customers, including non-residential and commercial customers. One important item to emphasize is that regardless of the stage and the reduction amount, customers will not be asked to reduce their monthly usage below 8 units per month. Again, stage 1 will be implemented in the areas that I just mentioned before. Stage 1 is a voluntary conservation stage. We have a voluntary target identified for each water system. It's a water alert stage, and we'll be asked customers to voluntarily conserve their water. We are requesting that our customers voluntarily reduce the monthly usage by 15% from the 2020 monthly usage. This aligns again with the Governor Newsom's request for all Californians to reduce their consumption by 15%. We're also encouraging customers to reduce their outdoor watering or irrigation to 3 days per week and water between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. Again, and just to emphasize once again, stage 1 will be implemented in the areas that I just discussed here for this meeting. Next slide, please. Stage 2 is identified as a moderate shortage. This stage is when actual water supply penalties are actually imposed. In this stage, we're asking for a 20% mandatory reduction. Outdoor watering is limited to 2 days a week. And again, outdoor watering must occur between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. And at this point, we have, if you exceed your allocation, there is an actual penalty that will be applied to every unit above the allocation. So let's talk about the allocation in particular stage 2. So if we use 2020 as the baseline, and in 2020, your units in September 2020 was 20 units, we're asking for a 20% reduction. That means we are seeking you to reduce your usage by 4 units. Your monthly allocation will be 16 units or 16 CCF. If your monthly usage for September 21 exceeds 16 units, you will be charged the penalty rate, also called the Drought Emergency Surcharge, for every unit used above your allocation of 16 units. This charge is on top of the regular commodity rate. As presented on the slide, the Drought Emergency Surcharge for stage 2 is $2.50 per unit. Again, this is in addition to the regular commodity rate that you'll be paying above the 16 units. Another important point to emphasize is that the penalties collected for exceeding an allocation are used to offset water supply costs and conservation program costs. Next slide, please. Stage 3 is qualified as a severe water supply shortage, and here we are seeking a 30% mandatory reduction. Once again, outdoor watering is restricted to 2 days per week, and you must water between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. The emergency surcharge for stage 3 is $5 per unit, again, on top of the normal commodity rate for anything exceeding the 30% allocation. Next slide, please. Stage 4 is a critical water supply shortage, and we are seeking a 40% reduction on monthly water usage, again, with 2020 being the baseline water year. Once again, stage 4, outdoor watering is reduced to 2 days per week, and watering times must be between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. The emergency surcharge for stage 4 is $7.50 per unit. Again, this is in addition to the regular commodity, above the regular commodity rate. And once again, the fees collected for the emergency surcharge will be applied to our water supply costs and conservation program costs. Stage 5 is a water shortage crisis. We're seeking a 50% reduction in monthly water usage, again, over the 2020 usage figure. Once again, watering is reduced to 2 days per week, and it must water between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. The drought emergency surcharge for stage 5 is $10 per unit, again, above in addition to the regular commodity rate. And finally, stage 6 is an emergency water supply shortage, and we're seeking a 55% reduction in monthly water usage over 2020 usage. Outdoor watering is restricted to 2 days a week, and you must water between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. And the drought emergency surcharge for stage 6 is $15 per unit, above the normal commodity rate. And once again, all the penalties collected for any of these surcharges will be applied to our water supply cost and conservation program costs. Just to make clear, though, for the folks on this call and the people attending this meeting that live in those areas that I've mentioned before, we are implementing a stage 1 level as a result of this filing, and that is a voluntary conservation stage. To advance to the next stage, we must file a Tier 2 advice letter with the PUC and provide adequate notice to you. We must also demonstrate to the PUC the need to move to the next stage. This information could include water supply information from a regional wholesale water agency, groundwater levels in our own or regional wells, and ongoing drought conditions, just to name a few. We also have an allocation process. If you feel that your allocation is too low, you can file an appeal by going to gswater/appeal or calling our 1-800 number at 999-4033. Please know that if you file an appeal, we will look at it very closely and we will analyze it in the context of efficient water usage across similar customer classes and characteristics, meter size and lot size, house size, and household size as well. Next slide, please. A few other provisions we have in Schedule 14.1 to help us address those conditions that are considered water use abuse. We have the ability to install flow restrictors should we experience customers that fail to adhere to the allocation, or we observe abusive water usage, such as water running off sidewalks or hosing down sidewalks. Restrictors are installed at $150 at the 5/8 to 1 inch meter size, $200 at the 1.5 to 2 inch meter size, and $300 at the 3 inch and larger meter size. And they will remain installed for a minimum of 7 days. And again, this is for extreme water use abuse, such as hosing down sidewalks, irrigation runoff, and just not complying with the mandatory water conservation programs. At this time, I will turn over the presentation to Ben Lewis, the General Manager of our Foothill District, and Ben will be providing information on the local drought conditions.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So again, when it comes to our local water conditions, basically we have 2 sources of supply. We have our groundwater basins in Southern California, as well as imported water. And for this conversation, we're going to discuss the impacts of the imported water. And again, our imported water is either from the north or from basically which is the Northern Sierras or the Colorado River. In the case of this drought, both have been impacted severely in terms of the impacts. So when we talk about the northern supply, this is the State Water Project. This is the water that you see down the I-5. You take an I-5 up to Sacramento, you see this aqueduct that's bringing water to Southern California. This is the State Water Project, which is managed by the Department of Water Resources. And again, for the State Water Project, its allocations was actually 5%. So it was not a 5% reduction, it was only 5%. In terms of the State Water Project. So that's what's coming from Northern California down to Southern California. Also, we have the Colorado River as a source of supply for us in terms of imported water. This is managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. And again, they were impacted greatly by the drought in terms of the Great Colorado Basin. So you see that impact as water comes into Southern California from, again, the north coming down, as well as from the east in terms of the Colorado River. And again, if you take the 10 going to Arizona, you'll see that aqueduct, or you'll see those facilities of how we move water from basically the Colorado River into Southern California. Next slide, please. And again, when it comes to, at this time, for Southern California counties, we were not included in the governor's drought proclamation. So we're not part of that. But for all Californians, we were asked to reduce our water usage by 15%. So that was the ask. And then Metropolitan Water District, which is actually on August 17, Metropolitan Water District, they actually import the water into Southern California. And as I said, both of those were they were impacted in terms of the drought. So basically, Metropolitan has issued a voluntary reduction to use water to preserve it for the region. And that's kind of what's kind of got us to the point of why we're implementing our Schedule 14.1. So those are the local conditions, again, from the Northern California and the Colorado River as we import water into Southern California, and as Metropolitan as our wholesaler manages water for us in Southern California. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Dr. Toby Moore, and he'll talk more about the local conditions, the long-term outlook. Toby?
Yes, thank you, Ben. As Ben mentioned, I'm going to spend a few minutes to talk about next steps and the state's long-term outlook. If we can go to the next slide, please. What are the anticipated next steps? Any implementation of our Schedule 14.1 will, such as moving into another stage, such as moving from stage 1 to a more restrictive stage, such as stage 2, or a higher stage depending on the need, will include direct notification to our customers along with a PUC filing. So please be assured that you will be notified of any such changes. As Mr. Rowley and Mr. Lewis have noted, California and the West Coast are experiencing very dry conditions for a second year in a row. In the short term, the state of California could issue mandatory water use targets, similar to what was issued in 2014 or other, should these conditions persist. In 2018, in response to the last drought, the California legislature passed two bills, Senate Bill 606 and Assembly Bill 1668, establishing a conservation way of life. These bills set both indoor and outdoor conservation use standards. The indoor standards initially are set at 55 gallons per person per day. These ramp down even further in 2025 to 52.5 gallons per person per day, and then down to 50 gallons per person per day in 2030. The legislature is considering an even more aggressive schedule and maybe even more aggressive targets in the current legislative session. Next slide, please. In the long term, water use efficiency and water supply resiliency will be the focus in California. Urban water use is much of that focus, especially in terms of indoor and outdoor use. I just reviewed the indoor standards, but this legislative package also sets outdoor standards that are currently being developed. These will be based on a system's climate, on the various amounts of hardscape, and the areas that can be irrigated within each of our systems. Those targets will likely be coming out in the near future. And additional standards are expected going forward, with drier conditions being more of the norm than in the past. And they will be considered looking at climate, population growth, and essentially development within our systems. With that, I'd like to pass on the presentation to Mr. Edwin DeLeon, our Water Use Efficiency Manager. Edwin?
Thank you, Toby. Good afternoon. I am Edwin DeLeon, and I am the Water Use Efficiency Manager for Golden State Water Company. You've heard a lot of information on Golden State Water Company's Schedule 14.1, the drought, local conditions, and a need to conserve water. The goals of the Water Use Efficiency Department is to better educate our customers on water conservation, show how water can be used more efficiently and effectively, and to help customers reduce their water footprint all at the same time. The United States Environmental Protection Agency definition of water efficiency is: water efficiency is the smart use of our water resources through water-saving technologies and simple steps we can all take around the house. Using water efficiently will help ensure reliable water supplies today and for future generations. Best of all, everyone can play their part in preserving our nation's water resources. Next slide, please. Golden State Water Company, our customers, did an outstanding job reducing water usage during the last drought, and most have continued those practices and have made conservation a way of life. We are all in this together and must work together to help protect valuable local and state water supplies. One of the biggest opportunities to save water is to reduce the amount of water used for outdoor watering. Next slide, please. State law prohibits the following actions that waste potable water: hosing off sidewalks, driveways, and other hardscapes. We recommend using a broom or an electric blower. Washing a motor vehicle with a hose, unless the hose is properly fitted with a shutoff nozzle. We recommend a positive shutoff nozzle that shuts off the flow of water when the handle is released. Operating a fountain or decorative water feature unless the water is part of a recirculating system. Watering outdoor landscapes in a manner that causes excess runoff or within 48 hours following measurable precipitation. And irrigating with potable water of ornamental turf on public street medians. Next slide, please. This slide covers available programs and conservation rebates for Golden State Water Company's residential customers. With this presentation covering a number of customer service areas, please check rebate availability and requirements on our gswater.com website. Golden State Water provides free water audits and offers rebates and programs to help customers improve their water efficiency and help save water. If you take advantage of our free water audit program, a water auditor will review your historical water usage, look at indoor and outdoor water use, look for possible leaks, and will generate a report with recommendations and possible opportunities to improve water efficiency and help save water. Available incentives and rebates may include premium high-efficiency toilets. Premium high-efficiency toilets flush 1.1 gallons or less per flush. High-efficiency clothes washers, and according to the United States EPA, high-efficiency clothes washers use about 25% less energy and 33% less water than regular washers. Weather-based irrigation controllers or smart controllers, efficient sprinkler nozzles, rain barrels, cisterns. We recommend that you check your local codes whether cisterns are allowed, landscape conservation programs, and the flume rebate. Now, the flume rebate is a flow monitoring device rebate. It is one of our newest programs. According to Flume, the Flume Smart Home Water Monitor helps manage, monitor, and conserve the world's most precious resource. Customers can install the device in under 10 minutes with no plumbing necessary. The device straps onto the water meter. The device can detect leaks and notify the customer immediately by smartphone or computer. And customers can monitor and manage water use indoors and out. Golden State Water Company continues to provide our residential customers with up to 2 free indoor water conservation kits that include an adjustable 1.5 gallon per minute high efficiency shower head, a 1.5 gallon per minute kitchen aerator, 2 1 gallon per minute bathroom aerators, toilet leak dye tablets, and instructions. Please log on to gswater.com website for instructions on how to request these free conservation kits. Next slide, please. Golden State Water has and will continue to update customers regarding local drought conditions, voluntary conservation, and ways customers can reduce their water footprint. To learn more about the drought and conservation opportunities, customers are encouraged to visit us online, email, call, or follow Golden State Water on social media. Thank you. I send it back to you, Mr. Rowley.
Thank you, Edwin. Quite a bit of information, and so please, we will be recording this presentation, so if you have the time to go and review it again to get the information if we missed some in this presentation. As we come to a close, I'd like to revisit a few key points for the customers and the service areas that I mentioned early on. We will be implementing a stage 1 voluntary conservation level for our 14.1 filing. Again, stage 1 does not have any penalties associated with exceeding your allocation. We're asking that you limit your watering to 3 days a week and water between the times of 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. And moving on to the frequently asked questions, One of the questions will be, how will I be notified of any stage adjustments or changes? As Dr. Moore mentioned, for us to move to the next stage, we must file a Tier 2 advice letter with the PUC, and the notification will be part of that process to you when we do so. In terms of how do you find your allocation will be basically on your water bill. It'll be allocations occur in stages 2 through 6. It'll be on your water bill the current month, and the forthcoming month will be on your water bill. Should be have to go to a stage 2 or higher mandatory conservation level. In terms of how you can appeal for a larger allocation, again, I mentioned you can go to our website at gswater.com/appeal, or call our 24-hour customer service number at 1-800-999-4033. There you can fill out a form and submit it to us for our evaluation. Again, we will be paying close attention to these requests in the context of customers in the area, water use efficiency standards and such. So, and looking at the overall package and request of what the allocation will be. Again, going to where the money is collected from the penalty fees, the money that we collect will go to offset water supply costs as well as offset conservation program costs. And finally, if you need to report a water waster within your community, an area that we serve, you can go to gswater.com/report-water-waste. There we have a form you can fill out that will give us information on just the actual water waste conditions, and we'll go out there and take a look and investigate it. Next slide, please. Again, if you have any questions or comments, we have, for this particular meeting, we have a dedicated customer line that we'd like for you to call in. This line will be open until 5 p.m. this evening. The number is 877-288-8816. Again, 877-288-8816. This line will be dedicated, be taking comments and answering questions regarding this 14.1 filing. The information provided by you during this time at this number will be provided to the PUC as part of this public meeting process. Next slide, please. Again, I'd like to thank you for attending this meeting today on behalf of Golden State Water Company and our 500+ employees that are dedicated to providing you with high quality and reliable water service. I want to thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting. I want to encourage you to continue to conserve our most precious resource, which is our water of the state, and encourage you to provide your input to this process. It's very important. Again, thank you for attending our 14.1 filing meeting today. Thank you.